All right, guys, the last video we focused on the models and relationships. If that's still fuzzy to you, don't worry. It's kind of a big paradigm. Rails has so many available associations that you can use. It can get incredibly complicated, but Ruby, the language itself, is so simple, so clean that it almost psychs you out because it's so simple in the sense, but just figuring out the problem you need to solve through relating different data, it can be thrilling and just freaking pain in the ass at the same time. So don't fear. As you do this more, you'll get it. It took me, like I said in the last video, this was probably the hardest project I've done to date. So I'm a noob with it, but I'm still learning the ropes and I'm slowly getting the hang of it. Just the general convention Rails has, which is kind of their policy convention over something else. At this point, I can't remember. But in this video, I'm going to focus on controllers. And right now I have this server running. I'm going to go ahead and go to our views just to show you where we're at, just where we were when we left off a couple of videos ago. We have our users hooked up and all of our models, but none of that data or anything is hooked up to the view or the controllers yet. So let's first get that going. And I will go to Sublime and go to the app and controllers. So the first one I want to focus on, I believe, is our, let's see, teams or projects. What should I do first? I think I said lastly I was going to do teams first, so I'm going to start there, I think. So with Devise, it ships with this cool action we can have. I just like to add it to most of the controllers that require user input. So authenticate. Underscore user bang, and then you can set which actions it actually authenticates on. So it checks if the user's logged in. If they're not, it prompts them to do so. So on this one, we just want edit, update, and destroy. Cool. So to get all the teams from our scaffold, we kind of had that set up, but I like to order the query as it comes back, so we can order it by the created at date, which comes by default on any new table. And descending is my preferred approach. And next we need to create a new team, but in order to create a new one, by default it works, but if you want it to be assigned to a user, you need to actually instantiate that. And in this case, this is what I ended up with. User.teams.build. And then later in this new view, we're going to need access to our current user, which I used as this symbol. Just the current user. This allows me in our actual new template, teams new right here, to have these variables available to me, so I can use them in the view and Rails won't spit back errors at me. It'll be like, oh, I know what that is. It's assigned to this. It's kind of that MVC pattern that I was talking about. And in our team, I'm just going down the list here. This one's going to be different too. It's getting parameters from the team params definition down here. It's a private function where we're permitting just the name for now. Since we're having nested attributes, I need a little bit more than that. In our case, for our users, we need more. So this one's going to be called users attributes. And that's a naming convention you want to uphold to. So whatever you end up calling this, whatever you accept nested attributes for in your model, as I described in the last video. So team, we have user here. Actually, that should be users. Hopefully you guys will know that or see that. Definitely want that to be plural. And if we hook back into the controller, we go back down to this method here, and inside of that attributes definition, we can add the user ID, in this case, the name of the user and the email, and then this method destroy, which is _ destroy. And if you basically whitelist your app to have this allow destroy true method there, you can have access to that to destroy the user on that team. In our case, it doesn't work that easily because Devise isn't set up that way. If it was just a basic model that I scaffolded in Rails, it would work perfectly. But I'm just including this just to be thorough. But if you have a different model other than a user that you add to, say, a team, or say it's an employee or employer or a company or something, you can add that the same way. It's all dependent on naming, how you name stuff, of course. So when I update, I don't want to redirect to the actual team itself. I just want it to be, or actually I do. On the creation, I want it to redirect to our root path. So this will go to that dashboard we made. And it'll prompt, it'll give that notice of, hey, team was successfully created. Cool. Up here is the bigger functionality that we need to invoke, which is a current user. It's kind of copying what we have before as teams.build as in the new method or action. But we want to pass in the parameters, and that saves the team plus the users associated with it. But I want the current user who's creating the team to also be associated with the team. So in this case, I need to do team.users and then do this kind of 2 thing, which is essentially saying, hey, add this current user to that array. When I'm signed in and I'm creating a team, I add users, I hit save, and when that happens, I'm logged in. And in this case, it finds my ID right here with this helper, and it appends it to that associated team.users. So if you think of Ruby, it does this first and then it does this after. But you can do it in order like that, so it's kind of a chaining effect. So the current user will find the teams and it'll build it and make it and then create it. But then shortly after, I'll take that team and the user list on that team and then append my own ID to it, assuming I'm the person signed in. So that's kind of confusing, but all in all, 2 lines of code can do quite a bit. So, and then right here, if we have a specific format we want to output to, we can. JSON, JS, HTML. I'm going to just use HTML for now. But this will save and then output and redirect to our root path and give us this notice. So that was a mouthful, but that's essentially what's going on. Destroy. Everything else looks pretty darn good, I think. Just going through and checking here. I think that looks perfect. Great. So while we're at it, our team has the associations and relationships going. Let's go ahead and just do the project while we're at it. So this has many projects. Oh, I'm on the wrong one. This has many, belongs to a team, belongs to a user, accepts nested attributes for teams. So when you accept nested attributes, you need to, like I did in the last controller, permit those attributes, and those here in our case were these attributes for the user. In this case, it's just going to be the team name or team ID and name and description of the project. So let's go to the project, and this one I want to do the same with before action. So I'll do before action. We'll do authenticate user, bang, and then only edit, update, and destroy. Okay, and then we can do the same with the projects that all, if you want to order it, you can do created at and then descending. So on the show page, we should be all set because we're doing this before action that finds the ID of the associated project. When you do a before action, it just automatically finds it for these methods in particular, or actions. So this set team or set project definition is right here. And this is what it's doing. It's saying, here's the project. Find that by the parameter of the ID passed in the URL. So that's that. Saves you some time in typing. Otherwise, you'd have to type this in every one of those actions, which would be a pain. Okay, so for the new method, similar fashion here, we want to do current user .projects .build, and then for teams, I need to find the team. Gets confusing a little bit, where the ID of the current is equal to the current user team ID. So on a project, I'm trying to find the team, and this is basically, to give you an example, on the project here, this is where the team name would spit out. If I were to go to the project page, I would want to be able to pull in the team name from that project. And to do that, I need to access it from a variable set in our controller. And here we're basically querying the database to find the ID of the team that matches the current user's team ID. So if it belongs to that user, it should display that team. Kind of confusing, but believe me, it makes sense. Okay, so edit, we also need to find teams for edit. And this is kind of just a odd end use case. And we'll kind of dedupe our same thing here. So current user.projects.build. We'll pass in the project params, which are way down here. And our project needs a few more params actually added to it on our permitted parameters, I should say. And it's actually just one, team ID. Basically whitelist these so Rails can pass them through a form and know that they're secure. Okay, so that is that. We can, after destroy a project, we can go back to the root path. And you'll see once I create the project show page, so the actual project page itself, I'll have a delete button on it. Once it deletes, I want it to actually go to back to the dashboard instead of anywhere else. Redirect to project after update, which is basically when we edit it, I want to go right back to the project I was working on or looking at. And after we create, same was true for that. So great. I think that should be it for that. So let's verify I didn't break anything. It's probably best to just restart our server. Control C, and then I hit the up key and I already had Rails S in my history there. And if we just refresh, hopefully this still shows up and we don't see any errors. Great. Awesome. So since I created a user before, it's not going to be associated to anything. So I'm going to actually delete that user and reestablish that connection. So I'm going to exit the server again and do Rails console. And I'll do @user equals user, @user.connection. Man, that's so much stuff. And then @user equals user.last. There's only been one, right? Yeah. So I'm still there. I don't have a team ID yet. I don't have, some of that stuff that would be necessary. So I'm going to just delete myself. User.destroy. Boom. The problem is I authenticated myself. So I kind of need to create a new user again. And it should be set up. So I'll do that again. Basically just repeat the process. It sounds funny, but it should be okay. Okay, so I'll sign up again. And now my user should be able to associate itself with stuff that we create as we go. Sign up. And I should get an email. There it is. Confirm. Enter a password. Awesome. Okay. So this stuff is still static. We'll still need to import all of this, but so far so good. We do have our path set up now though. If we go to our routes, leave our server running. If we run rake routes, if I can type rake routes, we should see all of the available basically helpers Rails gives us based on what models we have. So we have our basic projects path, our teams path, and new project, edit project, etc. And then all of our Devise stuff too. So that's pretty cool. So this is all thankful to or from the resources definition in our config file in our routes. So config routes, these right here are responsible for all those routes, and you can do individual ones if you write like get index, I don't know, home index or whatever, like we saw at the very beginning. That isn't the case here. So we have our resources there, and we should be all set. So I'm gonna maybe hook up some of our views. Maybe I can do our index view just to get it kind of out of the way, some of the new paths. So go to home, dashboard. So we have I want this to link to a new project. So this is our projects group, which is right here. And this button is what I'm talking about. I want this to link to a new project path. So all I really need to type here instead of this placeholder is new project path. And Rails should be smart enough to know, hey, that's going to go to projects new, right? And it does. Looks like I misspelled something though. Let me go back to our model. So project accept nested attributes. What am I missing here? Accepts? Should it be accepts or accept? Good question. It's plural, so I need an S right here. That should clear up. Awesome. So this looks terrible, but we do have our name and description and what will soon be a team ID once I import all that stuff. So we'll have to do some HTML love here for sure, but essentially have our routes set up. The same is true for our team, so I can do that on the team path, new team path. And go back there. Let's see if that works. Teams.new name. Awesome. Okay, so I think we can even go into hooking up these other links, which would be the project name. And maybe I'll finish out this home page and we'll call it a day for this video. And then in the next one, we'll start working on our team form where we generate a team and the users associated with the team. So we'll get into that very soon. But first, let's just hook this up real quick. Since we have our associations defined, this stuff shouldn't error out, I believe, but don't quote me on that. So here I'm going to check if the user signed in first. I really don't need to though, because it's on this page. Since we're already checking in our view, right here, we're checking if the user signed in. I don't need to check at all on this entire page. So that's nice. So here I just want to output our projects.count. And this is on our, before I go on, this will error out. This is on our home controller. And we don't have anything set up there to feed through. So we need some variables in this case that will, associate to the right things. And this one's going to be a little tricky because we need to associate teams and projects and also check if a user's signed in first to get this stuff. So I'm going to do inside this, I'm going to try teams where, kind of a similar query we did earlier, but I'm going to get the current user team ID, and then projects will equal project where team ID will equal a current user dot team ID. We're trying to match up those IDs. And I think that should be good for now. We'll be coming back to each controller to do some stuff with that activity panel, but for now I think we're okay. Let's see if this errors out first. Nope. Cool. Okay, so we can get the projects.count. That would otherwise be 0 in this case since there isn't one, but if I added 1, we could just see it would be like 0, 1, right? Yeah. So just to verify. Cool, so we can go ahead and hook everything up here. So let's go to link to the project name. This will be fairly simple. It's going to be the link to and then project.name. Actually, we need to, okay, this isn't quite so simple. We need to actually create a loop here through our projects by doing a dot each do. So for each project, we're using this little variable here called project, and I misspelled do. And then we want to end that block right below this entire block here. Actually, this one wants to go before that div, because this div is the beginning of this one. So instead of here, we can access everything using this as the variable instead of this. And this actually needs to be plural because that's how we defined it in our controller. Right here, projects. So through that, we can loop through each of the projects that exist, if they do, and link to the project.name. And we'll link to the actual project. So here, this is what displays on the front, and then it's linking to the actual project path. You can type path here if you really want to, but you can just do the same for project too. So project team name in this case will be project.team.name. It's pretty simple, right? Project.team. And then we'll have it be created by an actual name here. So we can put a colon and then just output with some rails the project.user.name. And like I said, we're able to access all this stuff through project because we added those IDs and associations. So our models are belonging to a team and a user, but we can also access it because the IDs in our database are matching up. So if the IDs match, that's when data comes back as, hey, this is what should be there because these relate. All right, so here we just want to get our teams count. And again, we're referencing that variable in our controller. So it's going to be the teams where the ID of the current user matches up. So it's only the teams of the person that's logged in, which is how it should be. So we got our new team path here. Below, we still need to link to the team name, which will be fairly simple here. We'll just get team.name, but we need to do another loop here on the content block through the teams. I can't spell that. Why can't I spell do? It's 2 letters. Oh man. Okay, team. And in here you can put anything. Like it could be a T, it could be an emoji if you really wanted to. I don't know if that would work or not, but I'm not going to try it. And then just something that's easier to reference later. Some guys will stick to a single letter just because it's less to type. That's pretty lazy to me. I'd rather explain what it is than be something that looks foreign. So here we'll just get team.name, and then we'll pass in the team. So it'll link to the team and display the team's name. We can get the team count, user count. And then finally we want to, this was new for me. It's a way to join names that are comma separated, but I don't want a trailing comma. So I found this method called safe join, which takes the team users and it maps through them. I'm gonna close this first, and in between the brackets is another loop. So here we're using the user in this case dot name, and then we need a comma to comma separate this part, which in quotes we want the separator, which in this case is our comma. We can just kind of close that off. Awesome. So by default, nothing's going to display. It's just going to be nothing because there isn't anything. So if we were to add a team or a project at this point, we could go, with the flow. I could add it, but I have nested attributes I need to add to these. So that means a form within a form. And I think I'm going to save that for the next part because we're already pretty far into this video. But essentially our stuff's hooked up and it's ready to roll. So we just need to get the creation part of each project and team down, as well as start working with some Vue.js. So I look forward to that and to seeing you in the next video.